Hello, it's Crane here, with the breakdown for the core piece in Armored Core 6. This is what I believe is one of the most interesting pieces to choose in AC6, and has the most potential for unique design variations to be expanded on if we ever get a DLC. The reason is because unlike other pieces that only interact with the AC through weight and energy load, the core piece has 3 adjustment stats that further affects your booster and generator of choice, both of which are important inner parts that heavily dictate your AC. Combined with the fact that you still have to care about the defensive aspect and the core's weight and energy cost means that changing your core piece changes a lot of your stat screen. Let us first discuss the stats. I am going to combine armor points, total defense, and attitude stability into a defensive score to more easily display the overall defensive capabilities of each core piece. However, we are not going to sort and discuss the core piece through the defensive aspect only. Next, the booster efficiency adjustment reduces the cost of your quick boost or increases it. Every point above 100 decreases your quick boost cost by 1%, while every point below 100 increases your quick boost cost by 1%. Next, the 1% increase or decrease also applies to generator output adjustment and generator supply adjustment, except the generator output adjustment increases the generator's energy output, while the generator supply adjustment decreases the delay before energy starts regenerating, both for normal energy recharge and when you redline the generator. For anyone using my spreadsheet, I have added a useful calculator for my generator page. I suggest you to download the latest version published after this video has released. You can select any core piece and it will show you the modified total energy output and recharge delay and redline delay in seconds. Messing around with different cores on this sheet should give you a much better idea of how much difference the core makes. The total score given here combines the defensive score with the adjustment stats to give a better sense of overall value. Out of the 3 adjustment stats, generator output adjustment is getting a bit more weight for being the most significant out of the 3. But even with the total score, I don't suggest directly looking at score to pick pieces, since your core piece depends very much on what you need to fill the slot for. What I am going to sort by is the column I made called cost, which takes into account both the weight and energy load of a core piece by standardizing them. This is what I'm going to use for ordering the cores, as I find that this is a good way to see a few patterns that cores tend to exhibit. For example, higher cost cores tend to have lower booster efficiency adjustment than lower cost cores. On the other hand, higher cost cores tend to have higher generator output adjustment than lower cost cores. If I only sort by weight, this effect is not as pronounced. Thus, we are going to work our way down from the highest overall cost to the lowest and discuss each core and its functionality in detail. Oh, and generator supply adjustment, unlike the other 2 adjustments, doesn't have such a pattern. You will also realize that the 2 other adjustments have a much larger range than generator supply adjustment. Let's start with the 3 chess pieces with the highest cost in game. I decided to go with these 3 because they do have the 3 highest defensive scores and all have poor booster efficiency adjustment. The next core on the cost list is the HAL826, which has a much lower defensive score, but much higher booster efficiency adjustment, so they're just different types of cores. These 3 pieces are very costly, but all provide a significant amount of defensive stats. Starting with the main dish, which actually has its AP ranked at 4th, but it still offers a very high defensive score, thanks to having the highest attitude stability. For its adjustment stats, it only excels at generator supply adjustment. In fact, it has the highest generator supply adjustment in game, and definitely much higher than the VE40A and the Tian-Qiang. But it also has the lowest generator output adjustment out of the three. This does make this chest a good pick with coral generators, as you don't need to leave spare energy load for energy supply efficiency, and you get your energy back faster than any other core, thanks to having the highest generator supply adjustment, which is the main thing redline generators care about when it comes to obtaining energy. This doesn't mean that the core piece is bad with other types of generators though. You just have to keep your supply efficiency in mind. The VE40A has the lowest defensive score out of these three cores, despite having the highest AP out of all the core pieces. This is because it has a large deficit on attitude stability, but the VE40A makes up for this by having the best adjustment stat out of the three highest cost core pieces. In particular, it has 122 generator output adjustment, which really allows you to run high energy cost weapons in your setup. The Tian-Qiang actually has the highest defensive score out of all the core pieces, and also the best score to cost ratio among the three pieces, which still holds pretty well despite considering its adjustment stats. Its adjustment stats suggest that using a regeneration type generator can benefit you well, as you have higher generator output for better efficiency. Since your generator supply adjustment is low, you don't really want to redline and put yourself in a long and perilous situation. This is a strong piece with a defensive orientation. Next up, I'm going to skip the HAL and talk about the Wrecker first. This piece is super defensive oriented by giving up on adjustment stats. Because of this, its total score is much lower than its defensive score, and its defensive score to cost ratio is extremely high for a piece with high cost. You have to remember that usually the costlier something is, the more you should expect its efficiency ratio to decrease due to game balancing with marginal returns in mind. You can see that I've also highlighted the main dish because these two share quite a lot of similarities like their adjustment stats, which isn't too surprising considering their manufacturer. The biggest difference between the main dish and the Wrecker is the lower attitude stability and generator supply adjustment on the Wrecker, in exchange for lower weight and energy load costs. Now, we're going to do a 180-degree turn as I cover the HAL826 and the Ephemera together. These two cores are the complete opposite of the Wrecker, with an enormous jump between defensive score and total score, thanks to having high adjustment stats but low defensive stats. In particular, they have a low attitude stability relative to their cost, making them similar to the VE40A, sort of like a cheaper version with less defensive score. And since defensive stats are correlated to weight, this is an even clearer picture to show you their low attitude stability. But in return, these two cores have an even higher overall adjustment stat with the same focus on the generator output adjustment, which is often the most important of the three adjustment stats. Thanks to the 1.03.1 nerf for the Ephemera core, since FromSoft puts more weight on generator output adjustment, and the Ephemera has the highest generator output adjustment in game, the Ephemera now has quite the low overall score to cost ratio, despite being cheaper than the HAL826. However, this is mostly due to the HAL being quite good on stat density, as the Ephemera's cost mostly comes from energy load, which it more than pays off with its 126 generator output adjustment. So they're both good pieces as long as you can make up for their attitude stability, which is why I mostly suggest running them with legs that have higher attitude stability, unless you really need that energy. Yes, this includes the Ephemera too, despite its low weight. These are the 6 legs with the highest attitude stability for you to think about. Next, we have the more balanced cores, without any particular weakness in their defensive side nor adjustment stats. but the first one we're talking about, the Mind Alpha, does have quite a decent amount of additional generator output adjustment. This is a great alternative to the HAL826 by having more attitude stability and being cheaper while only slightly losing out on the other stats. In fact, its lowest adjustment stat is the booster adjustment, which is still at 95. This is a very good midweight option, but a bit less so for the lightweights because lighter weight ACs tend to rely on their quick boosts. And for ACs more reliant on quick boosts, I suggest the VP40S, which has 7 more points in its booster adjustment. Yes, its other adjustments are lower than the Mind Alpha, but this is truly the most well-balanced piece that also hosts quite a high total score to cost ratio. This is a great starting piece, as you can easily adjust for more energy output or more booster efficiency from this point. The Melander chest piece has adjustment stats that's fairly comparable to the Mind Alpha, which is actually a bad thing, because its cost is not very different. They have 60 points in energy load difference, but if we do the simple math, any generator with more than 857 energy output will benefit more from the Mind Alpha than the Melander. And since all generators have over 2000 energy output, the Mind Alpha is actually cheaper than the Melander. It is also overall more stat dense too. You're only losing out on 710 points of weight and 3 points in attitude stability, so I always run the Mind Alpha over the Melander. And the Melander C3 also has a similar problem if you compare it to the VP40S, which once again has similar adjustment stats. And yes, the 4 points in additional generator output also always makes up for being costlier here as well. So you're really only saving 10k worth of weight. But the VP40S is also stat denser while being more expensive. Once again, remember, usually costlier pieces will tend to be less stat dense by design. Since this is not the case here, I also recommend the VP40S over the Melander C3. The next 4 core pieces have high booster efficiency adjustment. Let's start with the Basho, which has a very glaring downside of having the lowest generator output adjustment in game. This really tanks your energy tank and removes any semblance of having good energy efficiency. Therefore, I recommend this chest piece to be used almost exclusively with coral generators, where you can make do without any energy efficiency. For any other generator, your weapons must have a very low average energy load to have a usable amount of energy efficiency. But for having such a crap generator output adjustment, the Basho has amazing defensive stats for its cost, beating pretty much everything around it up until the Wrecker. This chest piece can perform extremely well in the right build because of how it specializes. Next, I'll talk about the Firmeza and the Alba together. They're really similar, having nearly identical defensive score. One has higher stability, while the other a higher AP. Their booster efficiency and generator output adjustment are also fairly similar, but the Alba beats the Firmeza by 16 points in generator supply adjustment, which is quite a lot. Here are the numbers for comparison, with the VP20C highlighted as a nice benchmark. It does make quite a big difference for fast builds, as you often quick boost here and there, interrupting your regeneration. This also makes the Alba more stat dense than the Firmeza, so I recommend the Alba over the Firmeza unless the highlighted difference of the stability, energy output, or weight really makes a difference for your build. But a quick and agile build definitely won't go wrong with the Alba. The Nachtreiher has the highest booster efficiency adjustment, and also the second highest generator supply adjustment. Having a low generator output adjustment definitely hurts, but this core is very focused on the energy maintenance aspect when you're piloting your AC. It does have the highest overall score to cost ratio, but this is because of its cheap weight. Remember what I said multiple times about how stat density works? Finally, let's talk about the last two core pieces to finish off the video. I doubt anyone expected the Jailbreak to be good. It really isn't. Its cost is very similar to the Alba's, but you're losing out greatly in terms of adjustment stats. A garbage core. Lastly, the Orbiter's biggest selling point is its cheap energy load. However, cheap energy load is the most useless stat to care about on a core because you have a stat called generator output adjustment. Let's just compare it with my balanced core of choice, the VP40S, which is only about 2.5k weight heavier. With only 3 points higher in generator output adjustment, the VP40S still beats the Orbiter. As long as the generator has over 2333 energy output, you will gain more energy from these 3 extra points of generator output adjustment. And the lowest energy output generator is at 2340. So the VP40S is technically cheaper on energy load on all generators. The Orbiter's other stats are not stellar either. Other cores in its weight class have much higher booster efficiency adjustment, which is good for lighter ACs. Therefore, with nothing particularly outstanding, the Orbiter is a core I don't recommend. Like and subscribe. If you want to support my work, please consider buying my fantasy novel or donating to my Patreon down below. With a book purchase, you can also request a topic from me. Krite, signing out.